When will New Horizons overtake the two Voyager spacecraft as the furthest man-made object from Earth?
Voyager 1, which is the farthest spacecraft from Earth, will actually never be overtaken by...
Voyager 1 just turned back and confirmed our worst fears while floating approximately 15 billion miles, 24 billion kilometers, away from Earth, making it the most distant human-made object ever launched into space. At first, scientists thought it was just a glitch. But then, the signal came through. Why now? Why, after all these years, does Voyager suddenly have something urgent to tell us? Grab your tea, because what you're about to hear might just shift the way you think about the universe. Stay with me to the very end, because that's where it all clicks. NASA detects anomaly in Voyager 1 signal. Out in the far, cold reaches of interstellar space, something strange happened. Something no one at NASA quite expected.
NASA says its Voyager 1 probe, the most distant human-made object in the universe, is sending usable information to Earth again.
In late 2023, the Voyager 1 spacecraft, humanity's most distant emissary launched back in 1977, suddenly started sending home what could only be described as nonsense. Engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, sat staring at their screens in confusion as the spacecraft's telemetry, normally a clear feed of data about its condition and scientific findings, transformed into a bizarre, jumbled stream of ones and zeros. It was like receiving a phone call from the edge of the solar system, only to hear static, over and over again. What was going on? Was Voyager 1 finally succumbing to old age? Or was something deeper at play? What could make a 46-year-old space probe turn back after heading into deep space? Voyager 1 just did something shocking, and what it found confirms a fear we've had for decades. Stay with us, because this changes everything. On November 14th, 2023, the realization hit. Voyager 1 had stopped sending back any usable science or engineering data. All the rich information it had been collecting about the interstellar medium, the space beyond our solar system, had been replaced with a kind of digital babble. And yet, strangely enough, the spacecraft was still listening. It continued to receive commands from Earth and responded in kind, proving that some core systems were still very much alive. So how could a spacecraft be partially awake but unable to speak in any meaningful way? NASA's engineers immediately went into detective mode. They knew this wasn't just a simple glitch. Months went by, with the same garbled stream of binary flowing in, repeating patterns that told them little more than the fact that Voyager 1 was still out there. Without the usual telemetry, they had no updates on the health of the spacecraft. Was it drifting off course? Was it operating on backup systems? No one could say for sure. And given that the signal had to travel nearly 15 billion miles, with each communication taking roughly 22.5 hours to arrive and the same to return, there was no such thing as quick fixes. Eventually, their investigation pointed toward a single culprit, the Flight Data Subsystem, FDS. This was one of Voyager 1's key onboard computers, tasked with gathering data from all its instruments, organizing it, and then transmitting it back to Earth. It was, in simple terms, the translator between Voyager and the people back home. But now, that translator was frozen, stuck in a loop, endlessly repeating the same message. What caused the freeze? Could a cosmic ray have scrambled its memory? Or had a software bug lain dormant for decades, only to rise now? This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Just a year earlier, in 2022, Voyager 1 had suffered a different kind of glitch when its attitude control system began sending nonsensical data. Back then, engineers managed to work around the issue, but this new problem felt bigger, more stubborn, and perhaps, most daunting of all, was the fact that the people who designed these systems had long since retired. NASA's current engineers had to dig into archives, poring over documents written over 40 years ago by minds who never imagined these machines would still be operating in 2024. Still, they pressed on. After a few failed attempts to simply restart the FDS or power cycle some instruments, the team decided to try something bolder. On March 1, 2024, they sent what they called a poke command, a digital nudge intended to jolt the FDS into using an alternate part of its software. Think of it like trying to wake someone from a strange dream by gently shaking them and whispering in their ear. They hoped the command might coax the computer out of its loop, maybe even bypass the corrupted section altogether. Now, imagine waiting 2 full days just to see if your message was received. That's the kind of patience this mission demands. With a 45-hour round trip for every command, even the smallest action takes time. At first, the poke didn't seem to change much. The data stream was different, yes, but still unreadable. Still, the engineers held on to a sliver of hope. After all, what if it was a step in the right direction? That hope was rewarded just 2 days later. On March 3rd, they noticed a small change. Something was happening inside the FDS. Then, on March 10th, came the breakthrough. Voyager 1 suddenly transmitted a complete readout of its entire FDS memory. Every byte, every instruction, every piece of code stored in that ancient computer made its way across the void and landed in Pasadena. For the first time in months, the team could see inside the spacecraft's digital brain. They now had a map, one that could help them figure out exactly what had gone wrong and how to fix it. This development didn't mean Voyager was completely back online just yet, but it was a monumental step forward. The data allowed engineers to begin untangling the issue and working on ways to restore full functionality. After all, this wasn't just about fixing an old piece of machinery. It was about keeping the spirit of exploration alive. Voyager 1, in its quiet and distant way, still had stories to tell. Stories about the vast, dark space between stars. Stories about radiation and magnetic fields. Stories that only it could tell, being farther from Earth than any human-made object in history. And that leads to a question that might tug at the heartstrings a bit. Why do we care so much about this lonely little spacecraft drifting far beyond the reach of the sun's light? Maybe it's because Voyager 1 is, in a way, us. It carries our songs, our messages, our curiosity. It carries the hope that we're not alone, or at the very least, that someone, somewhere, might one day find what we sent. And even now, after nearly 5 decades, Voyager 1 reminds us that the journey is never really over. Not as long as there's still a signal out there, still a whisper coming in from the stars. Engineers decode memory readout from 15 billion miles away. In early March 2024, after what felt like an eternity of silence, something finally shifted. And for the team at NASA, that shift felt almost like hearing a whisper from an old friend across the void of time and space. For months, Voyager 1 had been sending back little more than garbled static, a mess of unintelligible data that left engineers scratching their heads and peering into the unknown with more questions than answers. But then, right when hope was thinning and tension was quietly mounting behind closed doors, something remarkable happened. A new signal pattern emerged from the static. And not just any pattern. This one looked different, strange enough to catch the eye of someone who had spent countless hours scanning seemingly useless noise. What could it be? It was March 3rd, and deep within NASA's control centers, engineers working with the Deep Space Network suddenly noticed something they hadn't seen in months, a readable sliver of data hidden inside the noise. Now, to most people, a shift in code might not mean much, but to those who understood the language of distant spacecraft, this was monumental. Could this be the sign they were hoping for? Was Voyager 1, humanity's most distant and daring explorer, finally trying to speak again? As it turns out, the anomaly didn't happen by chance. Just days earlier, mission specialists had sent a carefully calculated poke command to the spacecraft, something akin to gently tapping a sleeping machine on the shoulder to see if it might stir. That command had been designed to trigger a different software pathway, an alternate route through the tangled threads of the probe's ancient operating system. And somehow, against all odds, and after 46 long years in the freezing emptiness of deep space, Voyager 1 responded. At first, the odd signal caused more confusion than excitement. What exactly were they looking at? It didn't seem to make much sense until one particularly sharp engineer took a closer look and made a critical breakthrough. What he found was nothing short of extraordinary: a full memory dump from the spacecraft's Flight Data Subsystem, FDS, a complete readout of what was going on inside one of the probe's most vital systems. And just like that, the silence was broken, not with a whisper, but with a flood of answers. This readout was priceless. It contained operating instructions, performance codes, and vital parameters that painted a clear picture of what the FDS was trying and failing to do. But what made things even more impressive and undeniably frustrating was the sheer patience required to even get to this point. With Voyager 1 floating about 15 billion miles away from Earth, every single command takes around 22.5 hours to get there, and another 22.5 hours for a response to come back. That's nearly 2 days for every simple back and forth. Imagine trying to troubleshoot a broken computer while only being able to press one button every 48 hours. That's the kind of patience we're talking about. Armed with the new memory dump, engineers began combing through it line by line, searching for clues. And after painstaking analysis, they found it. Roughly 3% of the Flight Data Subsystem's memory had become corrupted. Just 3%. But that tiny slice was enough to throw off the entire system, stopping it from sending back anything that made sense. Think of it like trying to read a book where every few lines have been blacked out. You can guess what it might be trying to say, but it's not really readable. That's what Voyager had been doing for months. But the real shocker came when they traced the problem to a single memory chip. Yes, one tiny component in a machine built nearly half a century ago had likely failed, causing all the trouble. The engineers floated two main theories. Maybe it was a cosmic ray, one of those high-energy particles that zoom through space and occasionally wreak havoc on electronics. Or maybe, just maybe, the chip had simply run out of time. After 46 years of non-stop work in the harshest environment imaginable, maybe it had finally done all it could. Wouldn't that be understandable? Still, knowing what went wrong didn't immediately solve the problem. After all, Voyager 1 is far beyond the reach of any physical repair. No astronaut could be sent to swap out a broken chip. The only way forward was through software. The team now faced the massive task of figuring out how to reprogram the FDS to work around the bad memory section, to find healthy memory, move important code into those spaces, and rewrite how the system operates, all while dealing with a 45-hour lag between each line of communication. Is it even possible to perform brain surgery from 15 billion miles away? That's the level of challenge they were facing. Yet, despite all the hurdles, this breakthrough gave the mission team something they hadn't had in months: clarity. For the first time since November 2023, they weren't stumbling in the dark. They had real data, a real cause, and a roadmap for the next steps. It wasn't a quick fix, everyone knew that, but it was a start. And for a spacecraft launched in 1977, still sending back whispers from beyond the solar system, a start was all they needed.
We have liftoff of the Titan Centaur carrying the first of two Voyager spacecraft to extend man's senses farther into the solar system than ever before.
So, what happens next? Can the team find a workaround that will bring Voyager 1 fully back online? Will they succeed in rerouting its brain around a faulty memory chip, breathing new life into an aging legend? Keep watching, because I'll be revealing an important aspect of the story. NASA confirms hardware damage in Voyager 1's memory chip. After weeks of deep troubleshooting and more than a few sleepless nights, NASA engineers finally broke their silence with a bittersweet revelation. Voyager 1's flight data system wasn't just acting up because of some outdated software bug. It had, in fact, suffered real physical damage to its memory hardware. That news hit like a gut punch to everyone who had been holding their breath since the spacecraft first started sending home strange, garbled signals. For a mission that's been flying farther than any human-made object has ever gone, surviving nearly 5 decades in the vacuum of space, this wasn't just a technical hiccup. It was a major turning point. The spacecraft wasn't just getting old, it was breaking down. Digging deeper into the problem, NASA's team discovered that about 3% of Voyager 1's flight data system, FDS, memory, had been corrupted. Now, on the surface, that might sound minor, just 3%, right? But when you're dealing with a spacecraft that only has about 68 kilobytes of total memory, yes, less than what your phone uses to load a single emoji, that little sliver of broken code becomes a massive roadblock. It wasn't just affecting background functions either. It hit the core of Voyager's ability to format and transmit data back to Earth, something that, obviously, is kind of important when you're 15 billion miles from home. Instead of useful science or engineering updates, all Earth was receiving was digital gibberish. The kind of stuff that made the mission team stare at their screens in disbelief, wondering, how do we fix a broken brain from across the solar system? The culprit? Well, engineers offered 2 likely suspects. One theory pointed to simple aging. Think about it. Voyager 1 was launched in 1977. That's before email, before smartphones, even before CDs. It was designed for a 5-year mission and has lasted more than 9 times that long. Would anyone really be surprised if a memory chip from the 70s started acting up in its 40s? It was, after all, built with the tech of its time. So in a way, the breakdown was overdue. But there was another, more cosmic explanation. It might have been the work of a high-energy cosmic ray, a tiny but powerful particle zipping through space at nearly the speed of light. Out in the vastness of interstellar space, without Earth's protective magnetic field, Voyager 1 is exposed to an invisible storm of these rays. One direct hit, and boom! Data cells can flip, memory can scramble, and delicate circuits can change forever. Engineers couldn't be sure, but either way, the result was the same. Part of Voyager's memory was gone for good. Now, here's the real question. What do you do when you can't fix the broken part? After all, Voyager 1 isn't parked in some hangar where you can pop open a panel and swap out a chip. It's in deep space, like really deep space. There are no astronauts aboard, no robotic arms nearby, no emergency service vehicles to call. So NASA did what NASA does best. They got creative. The team didn't waste time trying to repair the corrupted chip. That was clearly impossible. Instead, they devised a workaround, something elegant and clever. They would reprogram the spacecraft to bypass the damaged memory entirely. And here's where things get even more mind-blowing. Remember that Voyager runs on technology older than most of the people reading this? Its brain has less memory than a digital watch, and yet NASA's engineers figured out a way to remotely rewire its thinking. First, They had to identify every tiny portion of the memory that still worked, block by block, byte by byte. Then, they carefully rewrote sections of code, rerouting the spacecraft's data flow away from the broken paths and into new, functional ones. Think of it like performing surgery with mittens on from across the galaxy. It had to be done with such precision because one wrong move could crash the system entirely. And they didn't have much room to play around in. Every instruction had to be condensed, optimized, and woven into the tiniest sliver of memory space. The workaround was nothing short of genius. They essentially told Voyager, "Okay, forget that broken drawer in your brain. We've built you a new one just big enough to store what matters." Through this new setup, Voyager could once again package up its science data and send it back in a way that Earth could actually understand. It wasn't a complete return to normal, but it was enough to keep the mission going. Enough to keep listening to a spacecraft that has been our eyes and ears in the dark for over 46 years. What do you do when the most legendary spacecraft in history suddenly goes silent and then whispers back? Voyager 1 just spoke to us again, after months of dead silence. But what did it say? And why does it matter now more than ever? Stay with us, because the end of this story will leave you staring at the stars differently. Voyager 1 resumes partial communication after months of silence. After months of confusion, silence, and what felt like hitting a cosmic dead end, Voyager 1, the little spacecraft that could, finally spoke up again. Can you imagine the collective sigh of relief and the fist pumps in NASA's control room when that first clear signal came through? It was April 20th, 2024, a date that would become yet another milestone in Voyager's already legendary journey through space. This wasn't just a technical fix. It was a moment soaked in triumph, anxiety, patience, and the kind of old-school ingenuity that reminds you why space exploration feels almost poetic. For months, Voyager 1 had been sending garbled signals back to Earth. If it was speaking a language, it was one nobody could understand. NASA's engineers, however, never gave up. They dug in, brainstormed, and eventually came up with a clever workaround. A fix that involved rerouting corrupted memory in a system designed back in the 1970s. That's right, this isn't state-of-the-art, AI-enhanced, modern tech we're talking about. This is a machine built with a calculator's brain, now 15 billion miles away from Earth, still stubbornly floating and still willing to whisper if someone just knows how to listen. The fix itself was nothing short of impressive. On April 18th, the team carried out their plan, which involved carefully moving corrupted software code to healthy areas of the Flight Data Subsystem, FDS, memory. They didn't just move it all in one piece either. No, they had to break it up into parts, reassemble it, make sure the pieces knew how to talk to each other again, and then update all the system's reference points so it wouldn't get lost. Can you imagine trying to repair a vintage typewriter in the dark, while blindfolded and 15 billion miles away? That's what they were up against. And then came the hardest part, the waiting. With a round-trip communication delay of about 45 hours, the engineers had no choice but to sit tight and hold their breath. Almost 2 days passed before Voyager responded. And when it did, it was like hearing a familiar voice after years of silence. For the first time since November 2023, the spacecraft began sending back readable engineering data. It was a breakthrough. It was a victory. It was proof that even when you're operating at the very edge of the solar system, there's still room for human brilliance. But of course, there's always a next step. While the engineering data was finally flowing again, the scientific instruments, the real treasure trove of Voyager's mission, were still quiet. Slowly but surely, NASA's team began tackling that too. They're methodically working through the rest of the FDS software, shifting more corrupted bits around, repairing what they can, and hoping to fully restore all science instruments. And their efforts are already paying off. By May 17th, 2 out of Voyager 1's 4 active science instruments had successfully resumed sending data. Think about that. 2 scientific eyes had opened once more after months of darkness, still watching the universe from an unimaginable distance. And yet, despite this incredible progress, NASA remains cautiously optimistic. As Suzanne Dodd, the Voyager project manager, put it, "We never know for sure what's going to happen with the Voyagers, but it constantly amazes me when they just keep going." Doesn't that line say it all? There's this quiet, stubborn magic to Voyager. It's like a cosmic survivor, out there alone, yet still part of us, still reporting in. Jamie Rankin, the deputy project scientist, echoed this blend of excitement and relief. She called it a nail-biter, and who wouldn't agree? This wasn't just about machinery and programming. This was about keeping alive a mission that's older than many of the people now working on it. A mission that's become symbolic of everything humans hope for when we look up at the stars. Maybe it means that persistence still matters, that even outdated technology in the hands of passionate people can defy expectations. Or maybe it just means that somewhere out there in the vast black, Voyager 1 is still chasing the stars, and somehow still finding its way home. Voyager mission nears its final chapter. Despite the fact that engineers have recently overcome one of the most stressful communication crises in the Voyager program's long history, the truth is becoming harder to ignore. Both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are quietly approaching the end of their legendary journey. For a pair of spacecraft that have defied the odds, rewritten science textbooks, and ventured into territory once thought unreachable, isn't it a little heartbreaking to think that their story is nearing its final chapter? But then again, how many stories get to stretch over 4.5 decades, carrying the heartbeat of humanity deeper into the cosmos with each passing mile? Now, let's talk about the lifeline of these cosmic travelers, their power. These spacecraft run on something called RTGs, or radioisotope thermoelectric generators. In everyday terms, that just means they're powered by the slow, steady decay of plutonium-238, which creates heat that's then turned into electricity. It's a bit like a campfire slowly burning out over time. Reliable, yes, but not eternal. And here's the catch. These generators lose about 4 watts of power every year. That might not sound like much, but when you're billions of miles from Earth and every watt counts, it's a big deal. NASA has stretched this power as far as humanly possible, switching off heaters, cutting down on non-essential systems, and prioritizing only what's absolutely necessary to keep the probes alive and listening. In fact, in March 2024, NASA made some difficult but necessary decisions. They powered down Voyager 1's cosmic ray subsystem experiment, a tool that had been faithfully gathering data since the 1970s. Voyager 2 is next in line, with its low-energy charged particle instrument already scheduled for deactivation. Why? Simply because, without cutting these corners, the probes might not have made it much longer. Engineers have even admitted that without these sacrifices, they'd likely have had to call an official end to the mission within mere months. Still, all is not lost. There's a flicker of hope that even after the main scientific instruments go dark, both Voyagers could continue sending back basic engineering data, information about the spacecraft's health and system functions, for a few more years. With careful conservation, It's believed they might still have enough juice to keep one science instrument running into the early 2030s. Imagine that, a spacecraft launched in 1977, still whispering back to Earth in 2033.
Space history. Voyager 1 is now a starship.
The space probe launched from Central Florida 36 years ago has made it beyond the solar system, the first human-made object to do so.
Isn't that wild? If all goes well, the absolute last trickle of data could come through as late as 2035 or 2036. But by then, the instruments will be like the fading voice of an old storyteller, delivering final messages before falling silent forever. As of now, Voyager 1 still operates its magnetometer, plasma wave subsystem, and its low-energy charged particle instrument, though that last one is set to be turned off by 2026. Voyager 2, just a bit behind its twin, still keeps its magnetic field and plasma wave instruments going, with its cosmic ray subsystem marked for shutdown around the same time. These instruments are more than just machines. They're the senses through which we've been able to see and hear the conditions of deep space. They've painted pictures of regions we could never touch, revealing the mysteries of magnetic fields, cosmic particles, and plasma waves beyond our solar system. Right now, Voyager 1 is roughly 15 billion miles. Yes, billion with a B, away from Earth. It takes more than 23 hours just for a signal from mission control to reach it. Voyager 2 isn't far behind, cruising along at about 13 billion miles away. Both spacecraft have officially crossed into interstellar space, Voyager 1 in 2012 and Voyager 2 in 2018. That means they've passed beyond the bubble of solar wind and radiation that surrounds our sun. They are now in uncharted waters, so to speak, quietly gliding through the void between stars. And when the power finally gives out, and it will, these two spacecraft will continue drifting in silence far from the world that created them. But they won't be entirely mute. Each Voyager carries with it a golden record, a time capsule etched with the sounds, music, and images of Earth. Have you ever thought about what those records mean? They aren't just a hello to the universe. They're a keepsake of who we were at a specific moment in time. It's like leaving a message in a bottle and tossing it into the cosmic sea, hoping that someday, somewhere, someone or something might find it. So yes, the end is near for Voyager 1 and 2 in terms of data transmission. But their journey? That's far from over. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.